This video, basically, I want to give quite a thorough explanation and kind of, I guess a bit of a summary of the article by the logical positivist Moritz Schlick. The article is called "The Foundation of Knowledge." Excuse me. The article, I think, is very important to logical positivism. And he published this in about 1934. He has a lot of very important articles in logical positivism. Another very important article by him, I would say, would be the one called "Positivism and Realism." In that article, he does kind of go over what the concept of positivism is. He is a logical. He was a large logical positivist, and was one of the main foundationalist ones, along with Rudolf Carnap. I have a couple of their introductory videos on logical positivism, so hopefully you have some kind of background knowledge as to what logical positivism is and what epistemology and philosophy of science is. Otherwise, this might not make as much sense as it could. So, basically, before this, we had writers like Rudolf Carnap write his Aufbau, which was basically about trying to make the justificatory link between sense data and things, in between those two languages, and kind of moving upward in science and knowledge. And we have people like Otto Neurath, which is different from Carnap and Schlick, in that Neurath was a coherentist. And so basically we have people in this logical positivist movement who are trying to make sense data or observation or experience, whatever you want to call it, because they are renewed empiricists. They kind of are the renewal of empiricism. So the foundationalists like Schlick and Carnap basically wanted to make sense data, the sense data or experience, the foundation, the unshakable, indubitable foundation of certainty between knowledge and reality, to allow us to build all of scientific knowledge upon experience. Because of translation issues, because it's not very easy to translate, and I say translation because we have this issue in the linguistic turn of philosophy, where we kind of move upward in ways of talking based upon what we're talking about, and we translate from language of sense data to the language of things, to the language of mathematics, and higher to the languages of advanced sciences, which is like talking about atoms and reading scientific apparatus, and those higher levels of scientific knowledge that scientists do every day. So, and the issue with translation is that we have to translate. We have to change our ways of talking in order to make this the foundation of science and knowledge. So that's kind of like a little bit of a brief thing. I have a video which is called Logical Positivism Basic Concepts, which kind of give a little more of a overview of the whole movement, and that's which is in my epistemology playlist, also in my philosophy of science playlist. So on with the article. He begins by talking about what a protocol statement is. Otto Neurath's article, which I have a video about, this is called protocol sentences, protocol statements, whatever you want to call it. This issue of protocol statements. The whole program is to make protocol statements the foundation evolved knowledge, like I said. But protocol statements. First, we have observation statements, and then we have protocol statements. A observation statement is black here now. A protocol statement is a recording of things previously sensed. So a observation statement would be like black here now. A protocol statement would be like Otto perceived black sense datum of a certain size and color at time at time t in place p. A specific recording of that. That's what a protocol statement is, which is much easier to make the foundation of all knowledge, because things like here and now lose their meaning as time goes by. But he will get into that. But Carnap before him had a distinction between protocol statements and non-protocol statements, and he also Carnap. I'll write his name here so you can kind of know that name. Carnap. And I have a video about his elimination of metaphysics for the logical analysis of language, which is a really awesome article. This guy, he kind of kept protocol statements as not subject to correction and not subject to verification, and you can't eliminate them, and you can't correct them. Neurath came along and said, well, no, you have to make your protocol statements subject to verification, thus they must be subject to correction and elimination. So Schlick kind of goes along with what Neurath is saying and kind of agrees with him. However, he still maintains his foundationalism, while Neurath is a definite coherentist. Protocol statements, they express simple facts with no alteration or molding. They express facts as the starting point of all knowledge, the foundation of knowledge. Knowledge begins with the confirmation of facts, and this is a big word here, which I'll definitely get to. And I'm sorry, this is going to be a little long, so if you want to get towards, I'm trying to be very basic. I'm trying to explain this in the best way I can. So if you want to get to or towards more long or more further parts in the article, you just use this little button to scroll over to later parts in the video. And this concerns reality. We want to have a unshakable connection between knowledge and reality. We need our scientific knowledge. We need our science to correspond to reality. We want to have an indubitable foundation, which is unshakable between reality and knowledge. Because if we can't make that connection, then according to a foundationalist, our science isn't really meaningless and doesn't correspond to anything, so it doesn't mean anything. The protocol statements are logically prior to all science. They are the ultimate basis of knowledge, according to people before him. So Schlick kind of questions the status of protocol statements as the basis of all, the ultimate basis of all knowledge for science. Schlick says no. Carnap thought that they were, and Neurath said no, they aren't. And Schlick, in 1934, Neurath published his article Protocol Sentences in 1932, and Carnap published his article in 1932 also as well, I think. So Neurath says no, these protocol statements they can't be the foundation of knowledge, and he kind of uses that to go into his coherentism. Schlick kind of does a really awesome thing here, I think. He says that the protocol statements are never absolutely certain. So he's kind of agreeing with Neurath in the first parts of this paper. in the first few parts of this paper, he is really kind of going along with this. He's going along with what Neurath is saying. So, if you haven't read this paper before and you first started reading it, you might think he was turning coherentist, but he's not. Protocol statements are never absolutely certain, according to Schlick, and they are subject to correction and elimination due to possible error. There could be error due to time and due to thinking that you had perceived something when it was really in a dream, or just lots of error because of the way our perception and sensing is set up. And he says that our own protocol statements, like Carnap places a priority on our own protocol statements. Neurath says no, and he says that, well, Otto's protocol statements can be just as acceptable as Kalon's, just being somebody else's. Schlick places a bit of a priority on our own protocol statements. However, they are not untouchable. What he does say is that usually, most of the time, when everybody else has a mutually agreeing set of beliefs, and then you have your own beliefs, and yours do not, and your protocol statements just totally contradict with everyone else's. You can just view them as dreaming fools. So they usually are not untouchable, but there are cases when they can be. So, in talking about all this, he kind of thinks of protocol statements as being corrigible. Corrigible means that they are touchable and vulnerable. That's basically the way. Foundationalists use words like incorrigible, which means that they can't be altered or touched. But they are corrigible, and he thinks of protocol statements as being sort of a measuring rod for reality. When we are doing science, we are sort of measuring our science as to reality. And if our science doesn't really measure up to reality via this measuring rod, then we have to change it up. So there's a lot more going on here that I could probably go on talking about for a long time. So I think it's good for you to read the paper. But he ultimately concludes this: protocol statements are not a firm basis of knowledge. We can't, because of issues of error and issues of issues of just the way our perception and sensing is set up. Error, basically. We cannot make our protocol statements the indubitable, unshakable basis, foundation of all knowledge in science. So this is the main thing that he concludes that you should take away from this. To take away from this is that he thinks that protocol statements cannot be the ultimate basis of all knowledge. So then he, having stated this, he moves on to talking about Neurath's coherence theory of truth slash knowledge. Coherence theories, now truth and knowledge, it's all the same concept, but it just depends on what we're talking about. With the coherence theory of knowledge, we're talking about a coherent system of beliefs. And a belief is justified based upon whether a belief coheres and is compatible with and doesn't contradict with one's coherent system of beliefs. So if you have this statement of mutual agreement and no contradictions. So for Neurath, he said that what matters is that everything fits together. So so the coherence theory of truth is that a statement is true if that statement coheres to other true statements. So what does Schlick say about this coherentism? Is that what he doesn't call it this. This is something that Lawrence Bonjour comes to call this objection to coherentism. Lawrence Bonjour, kind of like the French way of saying good day or hello. Moritz Schlick, the alternate coherent systems objection, which is that given any one's coherent system of beliefs, we could switch that out for any other coherent system and be fine, and not having any problems. So basically, we could be trying to justify our fairy tales, and trying to prove those fairy tales out, and trying to prove physics wrong because it's set up in a sort of more of a foundationalist way. Schlick comes to the belief that coherence is logically impossible because it's trying to prove prove fairy tales correct, and physics wrong. So there is a lot more going on here. So this is also, even how long this video is getting, this is still kind of brief because there's a lot of stuff going on. It is kind of a long paper, So he moves on. He says that coherence has been disposed of. So he thinks about how are we going to move forward in making observation or experience the foundation of our knowledge. And we can't do it the way Carnot did it, with making protocol statements the ultimate foundation of all knowledge. So he thinks about something which is called a economy principle. And what this is that also he kind of sort of disposes of the name protocol statements and comes towards the name of basic statements. Which is way more prevalent, than talking about protocol statements are. So, a basic statement is obviously one that doesn't need justification beyond itself, and is freestanding. And there's lots more definitions of this, and I have a video called the Introduction to Foundational Epistemology if you want a little more discussion of that. The economy principle is that we choose our basic statements, which is requiring the minimum of alteration in the system, and to rid it of contradictions. So we choose our basic statements or our protocol statements based upon which ones we can put in our coherent system of beliefs. So we try to put basic statements in here, but we put the ones in there that requires the minimum of alteration. Minimum of alteration. And also minimum of elimination. So we choose the basic statements which we can put into this, and to where it will cohere and have the least amount of contradiction and no contradiction actually, while having the minimum of alteration. So Schlick thinks of this as not the best way to do it, because it still is it's doesn't distinguish basic statements from the other ones, and he states that, he kind of goes against this and states that basic statements or protocol statements depends upon the origin, where it came from. Where did a basic statement or a protocol statement come from? As to where it came from, it probably came from basic statements or protocol statements probably came from this sense data or observation or experience. So we judge a statement as, so basically here with this whole thing, a statement being trying to make it cohere with this, a statement is basic until further notice. So with this, he says it's kind of hard to distinguish some statements as basic and others not. So here a statement is basic based upon where it came from. If a statement came from observation, then it has basicality, or it is a protocol statement. Yeah. And he kind of talks a bit about how the facts of one's own perception usually have indubitable certainty, and that's how we can go on thinking of everyone else as dreaming fools if we have to. And we test truth and meaning and justification based upon our own experience, and that's where we go. And can be something of a foundation of knowledge. So I want to sort of wind down this video by talking about this little structure that I have here. The structure. This in, I forget what part, I think it's like part 4 of his paper. He talks about the structure of justification and knowledge. First of all, we have these two are kind of the same thing. We have observation statements and we have the confirmations. Confirmations are the end of all science, or the goal of all science, to get towards more confirmations. And confirmations have to do with verification via this stuff, figuring out that we have guessed correctly, or falsification, which is figuring out which things that we have said are wrong and trashing them. The structure is that we have first observation statements, which this is temporally prior, and logically prior. We experience something, and then we go and have basically where the scientific processes and languages towards, we're talking about like things and advanced science, and we have quite a few languages in here for a few from talking about sense data to things to geometry and arithmetic towards chemistry and physics and on up. So for Carnap, there wasn't any of this stuff. This stuff was totally gone, and it would just be like this. Well, the protocol statements would be here though. But for Carnap, before this, in his empiricism, science, and ontology, things change. But right here, this is the way it looked for Carnap in 1932. But first we have a experience, and then we justificatorily translate our talk of this stuff to talk about things, and do the same thing and translate to talk about geometry and arithmetic and chemistry and physics and even psychology. And then we come to a protocol statement, which is the way he has been talking about it, a protocol statement which can be altered, and then we have a confirmation. A confirmation is basically a observation statement which comes temporally prior or temporally following the system of science, and then this whole thing repeats, and we have a confirmation, and then we do all of this part again, and then we come to another confirmation, and we just keep on going upward, and confirmations is therefore the end of all science. Confirmation, which does these two things, verification and falsification. Confirmations verify things that we have guessed correctly, and points out things that we have guessed wrongly, trashes the false stuff, and keeps building on the verified stuff. So, I'd like to end this video by sort of reminding you of the sort of the whole thing that all of positivists agree with: verification, conditions, meaning, conditions, truth, conditions, and justification. This is the whole thing that no matter whether we're talking about the foundationalists or the coherentists, they all abide by this. I think lots of epistemology still does today. Verification, the conditions under which a statement is verified, is the same as which a statement has meaning, is the same as the conditions under which a statement is true, and is the same as the conditions under which a statement is justified. So this is the whole main thing that all the logical positivists abide by. So if you think I've done something wrong, or if you think I've left out something in this whole article, or something at all, or if you think that well, anything really, or if you have a question, something you want to discuss, whenever you comment, I get an email immediately, so I always know. So if you have a comment, I will always respond to you, as long as it is of some sort of useful purpose. And thank you for watching.